The morning sun barely peeks through the curtains, casting a pale glow across the bedroom. The protagonist, Emma, stands frozen in shock as she stares at the scene before her. Her husband, Derek, holding the phone with an image of her in another man's arms. The silence in the room is suffocating, thick with the tension of the moment. Derek's face is a mask of disbelief, but underneath, there's an undercurrent of deep betrayal. "How long?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper, but the question cuts through her like a knife. Emma's breath hitches in her chest. She wants to speak, to explain, but the words feel like a prison inside her mouth. The weight of her infidelity hangs heavily in the air. A single tear rolls down her cheek, but her eyes never leave Derek's face. She doesn't know how to fix this. She doesn't know if it's fixable. Derek's voice finally breaks the silence again, now filled with a cold, detached edge. "How long, Emma?" he repeats, his words cutting sharper than before. The second time, there's no room for confusion or avoidance. Emma's heart races in her chest, and for a fleeting moment, she wants to run away, to escape the weight of the truth. But she knows there's no escape now. Derek deserves an answer, even if it's the hardest thing she's ever had to say. "A few months," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. The words feel like they weigh more than the entire room. Derek's face hardens, the pain turning into something darker, something colder. "A few months?" he repeats, the disbelief lacing his voice like venom. He steps back as if the air around him has become too toxic to breathe. Emma, too, steps back instinctively, but her gaze never leaves him, the pain evident in her eyes. Emma can feel the weight of Derek's gaze piercing into her, but the silence that follows is worse than any words. It stretches on for what feels like an eternity, each second feeling heavier than the last. Finally, Derek speaks again, but this time his voice is quieter, almost resigned. "Why, Emma?" he asks, the pain in his voice too raw to ignore. The question hangs in the air like an open wound, and Emma struggles to find the right words to explain a betrayal she can barely understand herself. I don't know," she says, her voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you, Derek. I made a mistake." Derek's eyes narrow, the hurt transforming into a bitter anger. "A mistake? That's what you call this?" he asks, disbelief coating his words. Emma can feel the gravity of her actions pressing down on her chest, but the worst part is seeing Derek, broken, betrayed, and angry. The argument escalates quickly, with words cutting deeper than ever before. "I don't want your apologies, Emma. I want the truth," Derek spits, his voice a mixture of rage and betrayal. Emma tries to explain herself, but the words seem to fail her, tumbling out incoherently as she struggles to find a way to fix something that may never be whole again. "I was lonely, Derek. I don't even know what happened, but I was wrong." Derek laughs bitterly, the sound foreign and bitter in the silence of the room. "Lonely," he repeats. "You think that justifies this? You think that's why you did this to me?" Emma tries to step forward, but Derek holds his hand up, stopping her. "No," he says firmly, his voice harsh. "You don't get to apologize now. Not after everything." Emma's heart sinks further as she realizes the depth of the chasm between them. Emma feels the weight of the silence after the outburst, knowing the damage has been done. "I love you, Derek," she whispers, the words barely escaping her lips. "I never meant to hurt you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry." Derek doesn't respond. Instead, he just stares at her, eyes vacant. It's as if he's already decided that their love is no more. The thought of losing him forever is almost too much to bear, but Emma knows that she's already lost. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Derek finally says, his voice distant. He turns away, heading toward the door. "You've already broken something that might never heal." As he leaves the room, Emma stands alone, crushed under the weight of her own mistakes. The days after the confrontation pass in a haze of cold silence. Derek is distant, withdrawing into himself. The apartment feels emptier with every passing hour. Emma, feeling the weight of her guilt, tries to reach out, but Derek keeps his distance, his presence barely more than a shadow in the house. She finds herself walking on eggshells, unsure of how to even begin mending what she's broken. At night she lies awake, staring at the empty side of the bed, her thoughts consumed by the image of Derek's heartache. She knows she's lost his trust, but she still clings to a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, there's a way back. One evening, she works up the courage to speak. "Derek, please," she says, her voice shaking, "we need to talk." But Derek doesn't respond. His silence is more cutting than any words he could have spoken. Days continue to pass in this uncomfortable limbo. Emma watches Derek from across the room, hoping for some sign that he's still in there, that the man she once knew isn't completely gone. But each attempt to connect seems futile. When she speaks, he barely acknowledges her. If they do have any conversation, it's terse and devoid of any real emotion. He talks about logistics, work, bills, the mundane things that keep life moving. But the warmth between them is gone, replaced with a cold formality. Emma realizes that Derek is no longer angry with her, he's simply numb. And that numbness terrifies her more than any outburst could. She sees him pull away more each day, becoming someone she no longer recognizes. "Derek," she whispers to herself one evening, "I'm so sorry." But even the apology feels hollow now, like a distant echo in a house full of ghosts. Emma's frustration grows as the days blend together, each one more lonely than the last. She's stuck in a cycle of trying and failing, unable to break through the wall that Derek has built around himself. One evening, she tries something different. Instead of talking about the past, she tries to reconnect in the way they used to, by sharing a quiet moment. She puts on some music, something familiar, and sits beside him on the couch. Derek glances at her, but says nothing. She watches him carefully, hoping for even the slightest sign of recognition. Slowly, she speaks. "Do you remember our first date?" she asks softly, her voice filled with nostalgia. Derek doesn't respond right away, but after a long moment he finally looks at her. His eyes are hollow, but for a split second she sees something there, a flicker of the man she once knew. It's so brief she almost wonders if it was just her imagination. But it's enough to make her keep trying. The silence between them stretches on, but something has shifted. It's not a sudden breakthrough, but it's progress. One day, Derek leaves the apartment early in the morning, and Emma, in a rare moment of clarity, finds herself packing a bag, preparing to leave. She doesn't know where she'll go or how she'll move forward, but she knows she can't stay in this emotional purgatory. Just as she's about to walk out the door, Derek returns, his face pale, his eyes haunted. "Don't leave," he says simply, his voice breaking with a vulnerability she hasn't heard in days. Emma hesitates, her fingers still wrapped around the handle of the door. "I don't want to," she says, her voice shaky. "But I can't keep living like this." Derek takes a step forward, reaching out, but stops just short of touching her. "Please stay," he whispers. It's the first time he's spoken to her like this in days, and the ache in his voice is undeniable. Emma stays. For the first time in days, they sit together in the living room, the air between them heavy but not hostile. There's no anger now, just the dull ache of unspoken words. Derek's eyes don't leave her as he speaks. "I don't know how to fix this," he says quietly, almost to himself. "I don't know if I even want to try." Emma can't say anything in return, the weight of her betrayal still too raw. But she stays, sitting in the silence with him, because it's the only thing she can do right now. It's not forgiveness, but it's a step towards something. They're no longer shouting, no longer pulling away. But the road ahead feels long and uncertain. "I'm sorry," Emma whispers again, the words inadequate, but the only ones she has left. Derek nods, his expression unreadable. The silence settles back between them, but this time it feels different, less suffocating, more like a shared understanding. The quiet between Emma and Derek is interrupted one evening when Derek finally speaks again. But this time it's not the emotional distance or silence that fills the room. It is something else, something darker. "You think I don't know, Emma?" Derek's voice is low, filled with cold realization. Emma looks up, her heart skipping a beat. There's a shift in his tone, something that makes her stomach drop. "Know what?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper, a knot forming in her chest. Derek's eyes harden, the mask of indifference slipping away. I know everything, he says. I've known for a while. Emma's blood runs cold. For a moment, she doesn't understand. What are you talking about? She asks, her mind racing, but then Derek pulls out a small envelope from his pocket. He places it on the table between them. The envelope, sealed tightly, bears her name in bold handwriting. Her breath catches in her throat. I'm not the only one who's been lying, Derek says quietly, his voice tinged with something darker than before. Emma reaches for the envelope, her hand trembling as she breaks the seal. The weight of the moment feels suffocating. Her pulse races as she pulls out the contents, a series of photographs. She looks at the images, each one sending a wave of shock and disbelief crashing over her. There, in black and white, are intimate moments with the man she'd been seeing behind Derek's back. The photos are all from places she thought were safe, places where she never imagined she could be exposed. Her eyes blur with tears as she looks up at Derek, her voice shaky. How did you? Derek cuts her off before she can finish. I knew, he says coldly. I've known for months. The whole time. Emma's mind is reeling. How had he known? Why hadn't he confronted her sooner? Derek's anger is quiet, controlled. But there's something darker in his eyes. A coldness she hasn't seen before. This was never about forgiveness, Emma, he says, his voice barely a whisper. Emma drops the photographs onto the table, her heart sinking as the weight of what Derek has known, and the consequences of her actions become clear. She wants to explain, to beg him to understand, but the words are stuck in her throat. Why didn't you say anything? She asks, her voice strained. Derek's gaze doesn't waver as he responds. Because I wanted you to do this. I wanted you to feel what I felt. To feel the weight of your own lies. Emma recoils at his words, but they hit her like a slap. She can see it now, Derek's cold demeanor, the emotional distance. It was all part of his plan. He wanted her to understand the betrayal in the same way he had. So this is it then? Emma asks, her voice breaking. This is the end. Derek doesn't answer right away, but his silence speaks volumes. For the first time in weeks, the weight of everything feels like too much to bear. The walls close in on Emma as she realizes that the man in front of her isn't the person she once knew. And in that realization, she begins to understand the true depth of his revenge. Derek's eyes remain fixed on Emma, but there's no warmth left in them, just a hard, calculating emptiness. You took everything from me, he says, his voice cold. And now, I'm going to make sure you understand what it feels like to be completely empty. Emma's heart clenches at his words, but she can't deny that she's done the same to him. She's the one who tore their world apart. She's the one who betrayed him. And now she's forced to confront the full extent of that betrayal. I'm sorry, she whispers, but Derek only shakes his head. Sorry doesn't fix this, Emma, he says bitterly. You don't get to be sorry, not after what you've done. There's no room for apologies in this moment, only the quiet devastation of what's already been lost. As the weight of Derek's words sinks in, Emma feels a profound sense of loss. She's not just losing Derek, she's losing herself. And there's no going back. After Derek's words, Emma is left speechless. Her body feels heavy, as if she's been struck. She watches Derek turn away, his back to her, and she realizes that this moment will be the one she never forgets. This is the moment when everything changed, when the love they shared was irrevocably shattered. Derek moves toward the door, his hand resting on the handle. Before he opens it, he speaks one last time. You think you can just walk away from this, don't you? He says, his voice eerily calm. You can't. You'll always carry this with you. With that, Derek opens the door and steps out, leaving Emma alone in the cold, empty room. She stands there for a long time, paralyzed by the weight of what she's lost. And in that moment, she knows that no matter how much she regrets her actions, the damage has been done. The door clicks shut behind him, sealing the final chapter of their love. The days following Derek's departure are some of the hardest Emma has ever faced. The silence in the apartment is unbearable, a constant reminder of the distance between her and the life she once had. She spends most of her time wandering through the empty rooms, trying to fill the void with anything that could distract her. But nothing works. The weight of her betrayal presses down on her, leaving her with an overwhelming sense of regret and guilt. One evening, as she sits in the living room, a knock at the door shatters the silence. It's Derek. He stands there, his face unreadable, his body language stiff. For a moment, neither of them speaks. Emma can't believe he's back. She's not sure what to expect, whether this is the beginning of reconciliation or the final end of everything. "I've been thinking," Derek says, his voice cold. "I need to show you something." Derek steps inside, his movements deliberate, as if each one is calculated. He looks around the apartment, his eyes scanning the space as if he's seeing it for the first time. Emma watches him, unsure of what he's thinking, unsure of how to bridge the gap that has grown between them. "What do you want, Derek?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. He turns to face her, his expression hardening. "I need you to understand something," he says, his voice low but firm. "What you did didn't just hurt me, it hurt us. And now, I need to show you what it feels like." Emma's heart races as she realizes that the plan he's been carrying out isn't over. There's more to the revenge he's exacting. "What do you mean?" she asks, her voice trembling. But Derek doesn't answer. Instead, he pulls out a box from under his coat and sets it on the table. He doesn't say another word, but Emma can feel the gravity of the moment. Emma slowly approaches the table, her hands trembling as she looks at the box. She doesn't want to open it, afraid of what it might hold, of what it might reveal. But Derek's cold stare makes her feel as though she has no choice. With shaky hands, she lifts the lid. Inside, she finds a series of documents, photos, receipts, and a detailed timeline of her affair. Derek has kept track of every moment, every lie, every secret. He's methodically cataloged her betrayal, turning it into something tangible. Emma feels the room close in around her as she realizes the full extent of what Derek has done. "You think I didn't notice?" Derek's voice cuts through her thoughts. "I knew everything, Emma. I just wanted you to understand what it feels like to have everything you thought you knew ripped away." He pauses for a moment, his gaze never leaving her face. "Now you're the one who's been exposed." Emma stares at the papers, her mind spinning as she tries to comprehend what Derek is showing her. "I never wanted to hurt you like this," she whispers, her voice breaking. "I never wanted any of this." Derek's face softens for a moment, but the anger still lingers in his eyes. "You did though," he says quietly. "You hurt me more than you'll ever understand, and I need you to see it, what it feels like to be completely betrayed." Emma's eyes fill with tears as she lowers her gaze to the documents once more. She feels hollow, as if the weight of her actions has drained all the color from her world. "I'm sorry, Derek," she says, her voice trembling. "I never meant for any of this to happen." But Derek doesn't respond. He simply stands there watching her, his face unreadable. The silence stretches between them, thick and suffocating. Derek takes a deep breath, his anger slowly giving way to something more sorrowful. "You've already taken everything from me, Emma," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "But what's left? What's left is my ability to forgive you. And I don't know if I can ever get that back." Emma's heart shatters at his words. The finality in his tone, the absolute loss of any hope for reconciliation, hits her harder than anything else he's said. "Please, Derek," she begs, her voice cracking. "I know I've destroyed everything, but please don't take that from me too. Please don't take away the chance to make this right." Derek shakes his head, his face a mask of sorrow. "It's already gone," he says. "I can't forgive you. I can't forget what you've done." With that, he turns and walks out of the apartment, leaving Emma alone once again. The door clicks shut behind him, and Emma sinks to her knees, overcome with grief. The reality of the loss she's endured is finally sinking in, and she knows there's no turning back now. In the days following Derek's departure, Emma is left in a state of emotional turmoil. She moves through her daily life in a haze, unable to focus on anything, her mind always drifting back to Derek and the relationship that has now fallen apart. She continues to live in the same apartment, but it no longer feels like home. It feels like a prison. Every room is filled with reminders of the life they once shared. The photos on the walls, the memories of meals shared at the dining table, the laughter that once echoed through the halls. It's all gone now. Emma wonders if she'll ever find peace again. She tries to reach out to Derek, sending texts and leaving messages, but he never responds. It's clear that his anger hasn't faded, and the chasm between them seems to have grown wider with each passing day. One night, as she sits in the living room, her phone buzzes. It's a message from Derek. "We need to talk." Emma's heart skips a beat when she reads the message. It's the first contact from Derek in days. She immediately feels a mix of hope and fear. She knows that whatever happens next will determine the course of their future, or the end of it. She tries to steady her hands as she types a reply. "Please come over. I don't know what to say, but we need to talk." The anticipation is almost unbearable. She paces the apartment, unable to sit still, her mind racing through every possible scenario. What does Derek want to say? Is he angry? Is he ready to hear her out, or has he completely given up on her? When the doorbell rings, she feels like her heart is in her throat. She opens the door to find Derek standing there, his face as unreadable as ever. "Let's talk," he says, his voice steady but filled with something deeper, something Emma can't quite decipher. Once inside, Emma leads Derek into the living room. She sits down on the couch, but Derek remains standing, his back straight, his eyes fixed on the floor. There's a palpable heaviness between them, like a storm waiting to break. Emma opens her mouth to speak, but the words get caught in her throat. Derek beats her to it. "I've been thinking a lot," he says, his voice surprisingly calm. "About everything. About what you did, and about what I've done." Emma looks up at him, unsure of where this conversation is headed. Derek finally meets her gaze, and for a fleeting moment, she sees vulnerability in his eyes. "I've been angry," he continues. "But anger isn't going to fix anything, and neither is guilt." Emma feels a rush of relief at his words, but it's tempered by the realization that they're still so far apart. "What are you saying?" she asks, her voice trembling. Derek takes a deep breath, the silence stretching out between them. Derek finally sits down beside her, but there's still a sense of tension in the air. "I'm not going to forgive you right now," he says, his words blunt but not unkind. "I'm not even sure if I can ever forgive you, but I want to try. I want to figure out if there's a way forward for us." Emma's heart swells at his words, but she knows that this is just the beginning of the healing process. "I'll do anything," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "Anything to make this right." Derek looks at her, his expression softening just a little. "I don't know if there's a right way to fix this," he admits, "but I'm willing to try. Together." The words hang in the air, fragile and tentative, but for the first time in what feels like forever, Emma feels a glimmer of hope. It won't be easy, and the road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it feels like they might have a chance. As they sit in the quiet of the living room, Emma feels the weight of the silence once again, but this time, it's different. It's no longer suffocating. She looks at Derek, her heart full of regret but also a sense of cautious optimism. "I know I've hurt you," she says, her voice steady. "But I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I can't change what happened, but I can try to make up for it, to be the person you deserve." Derek looks at her, his expression unreadable for a long moment. Finally, he nods, his eyes softening. "I'm not saying we're okay yet," he replies. "But I'm willing to try, too." There's a long pause as they both absorb the weight of his words. Emma feels a sense of relief, but it's tempered by the reality that healing won't happen overnight. Still, they've taken the first step. And for the first time in a long while, it feels like they're no longer standing in the ruins of their past. They're standing together, cautiously facing the future. It's been weeks since Derek and Emma started talking again, and things have slowly begun to settle into a fragile routine. There are still moments of tension, awkward silences, unspoken words hanging in the air, but they're trying. Derek has opened up more, but the scars of the past are still fresh. Emma knows they can't move forward until they address what happened, but each time she tries to bring it up, Derek shuts down. It's as if the past is too painful to revisit. One evening, as they sit together on the couch, Emma decides she can't wait any longer. She needs answers. What did they do? Derek, we can't move on if we don't talk about everything, she says softly, her voice steady. I need to know where your heart is. Are you really ready to try again? Or are you just going through the motions because you feel guilty? Derek looks at her, his eyes pained, but there's a new depth to them. He takes a long breath before finally speaking. I don't know, he admits quietly. But I'm here, and that has to count for something. Derek's words hang in the air, and Emma feels a pang of hurt, but she understands. He's not ready to forgive her completely yet, and maybe he never will be. But they can't keep living in limbo, pretending that everything is fine when it's not. I get it, she says quietly, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. We both need time, but if we don't address the hurt, we're never going to get past it. Derek doesn't answer at first. He's lost in his thoughts, his gaze distant. Emma watches him, her heart heavy with the weight of everything they've been through. After a long pause, he looks at her. I don't know if I can ever forget, he admits. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you and not see what you did. But I'm here, and that's the truth. Emma's throat tightens as she nods, grateful for his honesty. It's not a perfect answer, but it's real. And for the first time in a long while, she feels like they might be able to build something, even if it's broken. The next few days pass in a blur of quiet moments and tentative conversations. They both try to move forward, but the weight of their past continues to hang over them. Emma starts to second-guess everything. Her choices, her actions, the relationship itself. She wonders if things will ever feel normal again. One evening, Derek comes home late from work, his expression tight, his jaw clenched. Emma is sitting at the kitchen table, nervously fiddling with her coffee cup. Derek, what's going on? She asks, sensing something is off. Derek runs a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Emma, he admits, his voice raw with emotion. I want to move forward, but I can't seem to stop looking back. I feel like I'm trapped in this loop of anger and confusion. I don't know how to get out. Emma stands up and walks over to him, placing a hand on his arm. We'll figure it out together, she says softly. But we can't keep pretending that things are okay when they're not. Derek sighs deeply, his eyes filled with frustration and self-doubt. I want to move on, he says quietly, but I don't know if I can. Emma looks at him, her heart breaking as she realizes the depth of his internal struggle. She's not sure how to help him, but she knows she can't keep pretending that things are fine. I know it's not easy, she says gently, but we can't stay stuck in this place of pain forever. I need you to tell me what you need. Do you want to work through this? Do you want to try again? Derek looks at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I want to, he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. But I don't know how. Emma reaches out, placing her hand in his, offering him a quiet gesture of support. We'll figure it out together, she says. One step at a time. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of everything they've been through. And for the first time in a while, Emma feels a flicker of hope for their future. As the days pass, Emma and Derek begin to rebuild, one small moment at a time. It's not easy, and it's not perfect, but they're trying. They talk more openly about their feelings, sharing their fears and doubts, their hopes and dreams. Slowly, the walls between them begin to crumble, though the scars remain. One evening, as they sit together on the couch, Derek turns to Emma, a soft smile on his lips. I don't know what the future holds, he says quietly, but I'm willing to face it with you. Emma smiles, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and gratitude. Me too, she says, her voice filled with quiet determination. They sit in silence for a moment, the weight of everything they've been through still present, but no longer suffocating. Together, they've made it this far. And for the first time, Emma feels a real sense of peace, knowing that even if they can't undo the past, they're building a future, one step at a time. It's been months since that pivotal conversation, and Emma and Derek have come a long way. Their relationship is not perfect, and they both know that the scars of the past will never fully fade. But they've learned to communicate, to trust, and to rebuild what was once shattered. Tonight, they sit together in the same living room where so much pain had transpired. There's a quiet sense of peace between them now, a comfort that hadn't been there before. Emma looks over at Derek, her heart swelling with something she hasn't felt in a long time. Hope. "I never thought we'd be here," she says softly, her voice filled with wonder. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Derek turns to her, his eyes soft but steady. "You didn't lose me," he replies, his tone gentle but firm. "We both had to lose ourselves first to find each other again. And I'm glad we did." For the first time in ages, Emma smiles fully, the weight of the past finally beginning to feel lighter. As the evening draws on, Emma and Derek talk more freely than they have in a long time. There are no more walls between them, no more hidden feelings or unspoken words. Their conversation flows easily, moving from light-hearted jokes to more serious topics, like the future. "What's next for us?" Emma asks, her voice steady but filled with curiosity. "Where do we go from here?" Derek leans back into the couch, his eyes thoughtful. "We take it day by day," he says with a quiet smile. "We keep working on this, keep learning to trust each other. And when the time is right, we'll know what's next." Emma nods, feeling a deep sense of relief at Derek's words. She realizes that the future is uncertain, but with Derek by her side, she's no longer afraid of it. They've already come so far. And now, the possibilities feel endless. Weeks later, Derek takes Emma's hand as they walk through a park on a quiet afternoon. It's a simple, mundane moment, but for both of them, it feels like everything. They've spent months working through the wreckage of their past, and now, for the first time, they can just exist in each other's presence, without the weight of their history hanging over them. Emma watches the sunlight filter through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," she admits, her voice soft. "I thought I had ruined everything." Derek glances at her, his grip tightening around her hand. "You didn't ruin anything, Emma," he says with a reassuring smile. "You just had to learn, just like I did. And now, we're here." Emma smiles back, her heart full of gratitude. They've made it through the storm, and now the peace they've fought for is within reach. One evening, as they sit together on the balcony, watching the stars come out, Derek turns to Emma, his expression serious but warm. "I've been thinking about everything we've been through," he begins, his voice steady. "And I've realized that there's no going back. We can't undo the past, and we can't change what happened. But I don't need to. What matters now is where we go from here, what we choose to build." Emma listens closely, her heart swelling as she watches him speak. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," Derek continues, his voice soft but full of conviction. "As long as it's with you." Emma feels the weight of his words settle into her chest, and a tear slips down her cheek, not from sadness but from the overwhelming sense of love and relief she feels. She wipes it away quickly, smiling. "I'm ready too," she says. "Let's build something beautiful." As they stand together, looking out at the city skyline, Emma feels a profound sense of peace. The city lights twinkle below, and for the first time in a long while, she feels truly at home. The road ahead is still unknown, but she's no longer afraid of what it might bring. With Derek by her side, she knows they can face anything. He slips his hand into hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. "We've been through the worst," he says softly, his voice filled with quiet strength. "But we're still here. And that's all that matters." Emma looks up at him, her heart full of gratitude. "I'll never take that for granted," she replies, her voice steady and strong. Together, they stand there in the quiet night, holding on to each other, ready to face whatever the future holds, together.